Have you ever moved somewhere and started developing an array of symptoms such as brain fog, insomnia, chronic fatigue, etc., but didn't think it was mold toxicity because you went on Google, you Googled it, and mold toxicity symptoms were symptoms such as skin irritation, itchy eyes, runny nose, coughing, dizziness, or headaches, and thought, I don't have any of these symptoms, I'm not affected by mold. Well, newsflash, I didn't have any of these symptoms and I was still greatly affected by mold. Hello everyone, for those who are new, my name is Sophie. Welcome to my channel, Natural Roots, where I talk about all things related to health as a woman recovering from chronic illness and soon-to-be practitioner. This is a subject that is very dear to me, mold toxicity, because I went through it not once, but twice. When you start talking about mold or mold-induced symptoms, you'll often receive side eyes from people or criticism that, oh, these symptoms can be caused by mold, oh, there's no mold in the home, or mold is part of, our environment and it shouldn't be affecting you this much. Somehow, people need to physically see the mold to understand how much mold is affecting their daily lives. Did you know that more than 50% of homes in America have mold inside of them? And more than 28% of the population have gene mutations that make them more susceptible to mold. Which means that a lot more people are affected by mold and don't even know it. For example, two people might be living in the same moldy apartment or home, but one person will have much deeper symptoms than the other one. Doesn't mean that the other one is not affected by mold, but because of gene mutations or the level of toxicity in their body, the other person is greatly affected and start developing even more symptoms. Mold exists even if you don't necessarily physically see it. Mold is often due to water damage. The most common places to find mold in your home is the bathroom, basement, and under sinks, whether it's the kitchen, whether it's the bathroom, because oftentimes these places are crowded with cleaning products or whatever, like paper towel, toilet papers, and it's very like a jammed up place. So when you can't properly see what's going around, even if there's a leak, you won't notice it right away. It might take a couple of years or a couple of months before you start realizing that there's a leak under your kitchen sink. I personally lived in 2 moldy apartments. The first time was when I just graduated from high school and was going to university in Montreal, and I was looking for an apartment that was cheap, close to university, and basically wouldn't cost me a lot because, let's face it, students are poor and I didn't have a lot of money. So I found an apartment, it was okay, and I thought, okay, it's within my budget and there's nothing else around, so let me just take it. I didn't know that it was going to be the start of an adventure, let's put it this way, of my health. Because a couple of months in, I started developing symptoms, which at the time I didn't know were related to mold because I was 18, I didn't know any better. I knew mold was bad, but I didn't know how it could affect your body and how it could affect me personally. I started developing chronic fatigue, headaches, severe depression. I would skip my classes because I couldn't just mentally go to class. It was just too hard for me. I also developed 7 UTIs in a period of 8 months. That's insane. For those who don't know it, it's not normal at all. I went to the hospital multiple times. And of course, the doctors just gave me rounds and rounds and rounds of antibiotics. I knew it wasn't good for me. I didn't know how severe the impacts would be on my health. But I was so much in pain that I was like, there's nothing else I can do. Let me just take it and hopefully this will be the last time. After a couple of rounds of antibiotics, it obviously didn't help me because the symptoms were coming back because it was my environment that was causing me to be sick. After a couple of months, I noticed black mold growing on top of my bed. I informed my landlord and he told me, oh, it's no big deal, just put bleach on it. Please, I repeat, Never, never, ever, ever put bleach on wall to kill mold. Walls are a porous material, which means that it will absorb all the moisture and all the water. For mold to grow, you need water and food, basically the wall. That's what mold is doing, right? It's eating the wall. So never, ever, ever put bleach on a wall or on a porous material. You can put it on tiles, but if you're trying to remove mold from, let's say, your shower and there's grout, you cannot put bleach on the grout because it is a semi-porous material as well. So it will maybe just even exacerbate the situation and cause mold to grow even more. When spring came, for those who know a little bit about Montreal, Montreal has a lot of situations where there are rats in the building. And guess what? Mine did as well. Obviously, I didn't know this at the time, but when I heard them crawling above my ceiling, I knew it was time for me to move out. I knew that the shape of this building was in much worse condition than I originally thought. Even though I saw a bit of mold, it didn't ring a bell to me that, there might be a deeper issue going on. But when I heard them and when I saw them, I was like, I need to get out as soon as possible. And you guessed it again, my landlord did not believe me and didn't do anything about it. Shocker. Anyways, by this time, I was scheduled to see a specialist because since I kept coming back to the hospital, the doctors were like, oh, you need to see a specialist for your UTIs. We'll refer you. So, of course, it takes a couple of months. I finally had my appointment. It was about a month and a half after I moved out from my apartment. I was still experiencing some symptoms. So I went ahead to the appointment, and guess what? The specialist gave me again antibiotics, low-grade antibiotics for a period of 3 months. After a couple weeks of taking them, I didn't have any symptoms anymore, so I decided to stop them. And thank God I did. With the information I know now, I'm so happy that I didn't take the 3 months of antibiotics. But was it really the antibiotics, or was it me moving out of the environment that was causing me to be sick? Because when I moved out, I didn't have no other UTIs. And you guessed it. The mold was causing bacteria to accumulate in my kidneys and therefore was causing infection. Fast forward to last year. Me and my husband moved into a small apartment. It was a 2-story apartment, and the apartment was newly renovated. It looked great, it was not old, it was good, and we were like, okay, it's within our budget and it suits our needs. So we went ahead and we rented the apartment. A couple of months in, the toilet started leaking, and that's when our landlord informed us that this had been a recurrent problem. Of course, I did not learn my lesson, and it did not click automatically that obviously there was mold growing in the walls of the bathroom. We were on the 2nd level, but it was still affecting me because the air circulation was all the same throughout all 3 units. Sometimes it might be confusing because an apartment may look renovated, but it's an old building. And most people don't know how to address mold properly. They don't know how to remediate the mold. So they sometimes just rip it out. But there's a lot of spores and a lot of mycotoxins that stay in the apartment. I was already going through a stressful situation, and I know that it was not only the mold that was affecting me, but I know that the mold exacerbated greatly my symptoms. It was still COVID times, so I was doing online school, and I was basically staying at home 24/7. I would only go out for groceries because stuff was still shut down. I wasn't working because I was focusing on my studies. So I was breathing in this mold all the time. In February 2022, this is where my health hit the lowest point in my life. I thought I was slowly dying. I really felt like there was no hope for me, and I just didn't know what to do at this point. I started again having UTIs, and this is where it clicked in that, oh, a couple of years ago, this happened to me when I was living in mold, and now it's happening again. And I was not having the symptoms of Google, that itchy eyes, skin irritation, etc., etc. No, my symptoms were completely different than the one described on Google. But that doesn't mean that I was not affected by mold. These symptoms are often for acute situation and not for chronic long exposure to mold, which most people are. Most people are not exposed to acute situation where there is so much mold that it affects you right away. It's more of a chronic long exposure that your body is not able to handle it anymore. Because as previously mentioned, 28% of the population have gene mutations that makes it hard for their body to detox from the mold and to flush out these toxins out of the body. It's only a couple of months after where I realized that the mold, heavy metals, parasites, toxins, chemicals were greatly affecting me. All of this is to say that if you are in the same situation, never ever lose hope. You might be bedbound, which I was. I had to quit school. I couldn't work. I could barely clean. I had difficulty cooking. Doing anything was such a big chore for me. But never, ever lose hope. Mold is a real thing, and if you are experiencing any of these symptoms and don't really know the root cause, it is worth investigating that you might be affected by mold. Never let anyone make you believe that the symptoms you are experiencing are not real and that it may not be mold related. Those people are not in your body. You are, and you know best. Follow your intuition and trust yourself. Trust your intuition. I hope this video gives hope to everybody and informs people that mold is a real issue and it's definitely not something to be overlooked. Thank you all for coming, and see you guys next week.